we also got some very relevant college football questions, like this one from Single T. How many teams can realistically go into the season hoping for a playoff berth? And Single T had a little homophone situation here. Spelled birth B-I-R-T-H. And then Bobin, one of the administrators at Reddit CFB, said timing-wise, it would be good to start trying in March if you would like a CFP B-I-R-T-H. If you would like a CFP B-E-R-T-H, I shouldn't try to spell on the show, by the way. My lack of confidence is showing. But it's a great question because with the 14 playoff, how many teams could realistically, even before the season starts, think they're going to compete for a playoff berth? Like you'd have maybe 3 or 4 in the SEC every year. You'd have 2 or 3 in the Big Ten. The Pac-12 last year was like, okay, you're going to get one, but who are, and it was basically Washington and Oregon by the end of the season. I think probably USC went in there with some hopes at the beginning of the season. But it's not nearly the number it is now. So when I did the top 25 the other day, we were talking about it. Teams that didn't make the top 25, I was thinking could be potential playoff teams. Now, if you go to our ceilings and floors episodes, you know that, of course, I don't think they're all going to make the playoff. I think some of them have a pretty wide range of outcomes. Like Oklahoma, I have with a pretty wide range of outcomes, and one of those outcomes is the college football playoff. So it's not necessarily that I think they're going to make it, but can they go into the season with like a glimmer of hope? Yeah, absolutely. So right now, I'm just doing the power conferences here because if we do the group of 5 leagues, we're going to get more teams, but I honestly don't know how that's going to go because I don't know how the committee is going to treat, say, Liberty's schedule versus the American Champs schedule versus the Sun Belt Champs schedule. So I don't know how realistic everybody's hopes are there. I feel like we got a little bit better handle on the power conferences just because we've seen how the committee has treated these teams over the years. And I'm assuming, which may be completely wrong, that they're going to vote in a fairly similar fashion to how they voted before, even though there were no playoff berths on the line beyond 4. So we'll start with the ACC. And I'm actually being somewhat conservative here in the ACC by saying that there's 4 teams I think should go into the season with a realistic playoff hope, because I think there's might be 5 or 6 ultimately. But I'm going to go with Clemson, Florida State, Miami, and NC State from the ACC. So that's 4. I would also be fine if you wanted to add Louisville and Virginia Tech. If you want to add those 2, by all means, add them. I'm just looking at this right now and thinking, okay, these 4 feel like the ones at the end of the tunnel. They have the talent to be 10-2, to be 11-1, or 12-1, 11-2, and have won the conference championship. But they feel like the ones that can be there. So I'm going to go with 4 there. The Big 12. Now, I don't know how many the Big 12 is going to get in. We have a question about that later. But the Big 12 champ is going to get in. The Big 12 champ is going to be one of the top 4 seeds. Well, guys, I got 8 teams that I think can win the Big 12 championship right now. Kansas State, Kansas, Arizona, Utah, Iowa State, Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, UCF. That's 8. And if you want to throw, what if TCU has a resurgence? That's not out of the question. What about Baylor? What about West Virginia, which won 9 games last year? Those would all be fairly realistic. So now you'd be up to 11. It's crazy, but I'm gonna stay with 8 there. I don't know. Let's go to 9. Let's add West Virginia coming off a 9-win season, bringing back most of the guys that were very important. Let's go to 9 on that. So now I think I'm up to 27 total teams once we get through the Big Ten and the SEC. I keep adding them because I can talk myself into this. But that's the thing. It's the beginning of the season. Nobody's played a game yet. who can have legitimate hope is the question. So the Big Ten, I've only got 5 listed here. And I realize I've got some higher ceilings for some of the teams that aren't listed. And there's one we'll talk about. So the 5 I have are Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State, Michigan, and Iowa. And I know you're saying, well, why Iowa? Because if you look at Iowa's schedule, if Iowa has even a glimmer of a competent offense, they're winning 10 games. 10-2 in the Big Ten is probably good enough to get you in. The one I don't have is USC. I am willing to add USC because I think if USC is significantly better on defense, then USC becomes competitive with everybody in the Big Ten instantly. I'm not worried about USC having an effective offense. As long as Lincoln Riley's the coach, there will be an effective offense. So that's not the problem. Defense has been the problem on Lincoln Riley's teams basically since he became a head coach. Can he get them better? Can Danton Lynn get them better defensively? He's the new defensive coordinator. Now, I think if they don't get better, I don't necessarily blame the coordinator. I blame the head coach. I blame the culture of the program. I blame the way they administrate the program, the way they practice. This is a team that, well, it's not even a team. Like USC Lincoln Riley or Oklahoma Lincoln Riley, they tend to be poor tackling teams at the end of the season. They tend to get beat at the point of attack. They tend to get beat up front late in the season. Like go back to that 2022 Pac-12 championship game, Utah just abusing USC at the line of scrimmage and USC not being able to tackle at all. Like those are the games you have to win to make the playoff. So that's why I've left them out here. If you want to add them, go for it. SEC. I've got 9 teams in the SEC, and 8 of them I think will come in where their fan bases do expect their team to make the college football playoff this season. Like really expect it. Like I've had some very angry Missouri fans and angry LSU fans since I put out my ranking because how dare I suggest that they won't make the college football playoff. I got angry Ole Miss fans that think I got them too low because the way I have them ranked, they'd have to play a road game in the playoff. Like that's where everybody's at in the SEC. So here are the 9 or I'll go with the 8 that for sure their fans are convinced that they are going to the college football playoff this season. Alabama, Georgia, LSU, Missouri, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Texas. Now, I don't know if Tennessee fans are convinced they're going to the playoff, but I definitely think they know if the schedule breaks right, they can be a 10-2 team. But all those other ones, they're coming into the season expecting a playoff. They're like, okay, we've been right on the edge there. We're in this year. The one that I didn't mention earlier that I do think has the ceiling to be a 10-win SEC team, which would probably put it in the playoff, is Texas A&M. We don't know how good they're going to be. Their schedule's pretty hard. They've got a first-year coach in Mike Elko. But the last time I saw Connor Wigman play quarterback, he was pretty damn good. He's been hurt. If he's healthy, they got a chance. So we're going to say 9 SEC teams. So that's 27 right now in the power conferences that we should probably feel like have legitimate hopes to make this college football playoff. 27. That's great. Because the part that makes it interesting is some of these will fall off at the beginning of the season. There are going to be a couple that lose, two early games, and we're like, okay, they're out. But then there will also be some other teams that I didn't mention that'll start hot, and we're like, okay, well, maybe they got a shot. Goat Dog says over under 3.5 SEC teams in the playoff. I'm going to go over. I think they're going to get 4. We'll address that in a question coming up, but I think they're going to get 4. But it is going to be a bloodbath in October, late October, in November with some of these games because there will be some virtual playoff elimination games. There will be some some games where somebody gets spoiled by getting upset. There will be teams that lose 2 games early in the season that get hot and go on a run. All of this is coming. And we have not gotten to see that much of that. We see it in other sports, but we've not gotten to see it in college football. So it's going to be very interesting to see the dynamics at play. And like the Big 12 schedule, like I said, there are that many teams that are capable of winning the league. They're all playing each other. It's going to be spectacular. And the thing is, like the ones I didn't mention doesn't mean they can't beat any of the ones I did mention. Zani in the chat. Would Florida make it if they go 8-4 against the right teams? No. I don't think they're going to put an 8-4 team in, even if it's like when you say the right teams, Zani's saying, okay, the problem is if you go 8-4 by beating the right teams, if you're Florida, it means you've lost some bad ones. So let's say like you beat Georgia, you beat Texas, you beat Ole Miss, you beat Florida State. Let's say you beat all those teams. Well, who'd you lose to? The thing about Florida is if you can win 8 games against this schedule, you can win 10 or 11 games against this schedule. But I don't know that's going to happen. So, yeah, I don't think they would get in. But I do think Billy Napier would keep his job if they go 8-4. I think that is definitely the outcome of that season. But yeah, that would be weird. It'd be strange if they just, in the early part of the schedule, which is a little bit easier, if they dropped 4 and then just went on a run through the meat of the schedule. Maybe if they started 0-4 and then won the last 8 because it's that last 8. Like, I don't know. The committee might be like, we've never seen anybody do this before. Christopher, I'd say they could get in at 9-3, depending. I do agree with that. I do agree with that. With the schedule like that, and there's a couple other schedules around the country where if you look at it, like LSU, I think is one of those. USC has a schedule like that. If they could be 9-3 and the 9 are against the right teams, you got a shot. Josh in the chat, Florida be lucky to get to 4 wins. It's probably somewhere in between what Josh said and what the other guys said, but let's let the folks dream right now. That's what we're doing. We're getting everybody excited. Everybody's 0-0. Everybody has a chance. Thank you so much for watching. Just a reminder, subscribe to this channel right here so you never miss an episode of Andy Staples on 3. And oh, by the way, watch all the other great videos on the On3 Sports YouTube channel.